Living in survival mode can not only wear you out mentally and emotionally, but can also be a drain on you physically. Let's talk about some of the signs and what you can do about it. Let's dive in. Now, living in survival mode or in that chronically stressed out state or kind of those stages of burnout can look different for everybody, but there are a few common signs that start to show up. When I think about survival mode, it's also kind of looking at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're at that base part of the triangle. You don't really have room to create or don't really have room for personal growth because you're literally just trying to pay the bills, trying to survive, trying to navigate the stress and everything that's coming your way. And in this state, we can't really create anything new. We barely have the energy to dream about something new, let alone go out and do it. And this is where generally we start to feel stuck, we start to feel frustrated, and that compounds the stress and anxiety we're already feeling. And that leads me to one of the signs that tends to happen is brain fog. Now, this literally goes back between the connection in your brain and your body. When we are chronically stressed out, when we are trying to survive, we are producing lots of stress hormones. We're dumping a lot of cortisol, a lot of adrenaline, epinephrine into our body. And when this happens chronically, we literally cannot think clearly. It makes it difficult for us to focus, difficult to concentrate. It's almost impossible to really form new long-lasting memories. And this is just because of physiologic processes that are actually happening in your brain. Your brain is more concerned with you surviving than it is with making a new memory. You are literally kind of set up to run away and to hide or to freeze. That cocktail of hormones that we are producing is literally driving our sympathetic nervous system into dominance. And when we're in this sympathetic mode, we really just cannot think clearly. When you're in this state, you may also notice unending fatigue. It almost doesn't matter how much sleep you get. You really are never well rested. You may be dragging through your day, or you're probably waking up at night. And no matter how much sleep you get, you never really feel that you have enough energy. And you've already got a ton of things to do, and doing even the smallest things can really feel like a Herculean effort. And again, this makes sense. When you're stressed out in this state, your body is burning through its resources, and it takes a lot to power your brain, power your body. And a lot of times your body just isn't able to really muster enough resources. In this aspect, another sign I commonly see is people getting really sick easily or actually increasing in pain. Getting sick makes sense because, again, when we're in survival, when we're chronically stressed, your body's dumping a lot of cortisol chronically. And chronic cortisol can actually start to depress or lower your immune system. That makes us more susceptible to all types of different infections and even types of autoimmune conditions. The other thing I notice quite a bit is that pain levels start to increase, and almost to the point where the levels don't seem to match up with symptoms. I start to see more presentations of chronic pain and really high levels of pain, and it almost becomes part of your identity, and it becomes part of the way you think. You wake up kind of expecting the pain, and whoop, there it goes. And we really start to program our mind into this pattern, which again can be self-defeating and can be cyclical, causing even more pain. More pain usually leads to more fatigue. More fatigue usually leads to more brain fog. So these things start to kind of spiral together. Another sign that I often see is increasing or new onset of depression and anxiety. And again, it makes sense because we are so stressed out and because we're kind of programming our mind into this pattern between the cocktail of hormones that we're producing. So again, the cortisol, the adrenaline, it makes sense that changes in mood or things or more nervousness like anxiety can start to pop up. When we're in survival, we're generally fearful. So of course we're worried about what may happen next. We tend to kind of run from one, I don't want to say disaster, but one fire to the next. And when this happens, we can also maybe start to feel things like numbness or even just that stuck feeling. We kind of have the same thoughts every day. We have the same experience when we're running through survival. Again, we're not creating anything new, really. We generally have no new input coming in. No, we're not taking time to read or enjoy life or to daydream. So we have no new input, no new actions, and well, nothing happens but the same thing. It's like Groundhog Day over and over again. And that can lead us to that stuck feeling or even feelings of numbness as well. And we start to withdraw. And again, this state of survival can look different. Sometimes you may have all of the above, you may have one or two of the above. Again, it looks different for everyone, but what can we do to get out of this or to break free of this cycle? One of the things I really rely on, either with myself or working with patients or working with clients, is to start to work on a mindset shift. I've talked so much about how we start to get into this pattern and we're literally training our brain into this feeling. Well, we could train ourselves out of it as well. And this is where things like meditation, mindfulness, or even breath work can really come into play. With using things like meditation and even breath work, we're actually changing our brainwave state. We're getting out of that kind of high beta brainwave state. That's the state in which we feel the anxiety. That's the state in which all the cortisol is being produced. But we can use these tools to actually kind of hack our way back into the system. Activities like meditation and breath work can actually help to slow down the sympathetic nervous system or put a bit of a brake on the sympathetic nervous system, helping us to shift into that parasympathetic mode. In this same vein, I start to think about doing things like a dopamine detox. I'll link that video down in the description box, but the idea is that we got to start changing some of the inputs we've been having, right? We have to switch it up. So that could look like taking a break from social media, taking a break from video games, taking a break from the news, for God's sakes. Being a bit more picky about what we consume and all those inputs that are coming in can really help change the way we think. And we can start to instead substitute some new inputs so we have new information coming in so that we can start to be a little bit more creative in our lives. Another tool that I rely on is exercise. And this one is sometimes one of the hardest things to get going when you are living in survival. There's already a million excuses why not to exercise, from being too busy to not have enough time to the pain and every other excuse that you could come up with. But exercise is, again, one of those ways to naturally start to boost our mood. You can increase our endorphins, we can improve our circulation. That in turn can also help us think better as well. When we don't move enough, pain levels often increase. So incorporating a bit of exercise, and again, it doesn't have to be crazy. I'm not talking about doing, high intensity interval training all the time. Even just getting out and going for a 15 or 20-minute walk can make a huge difference. Again, we're all about looking for ways to shift us into that parasympathetic nervous state, to get out of that sympathetic mode, that survival mode. I also like to think about self-care, and there are many categories that can kind of fall under this. One of the things is nutrition. Like, we often don't take the time to properly nourish ourselves, but taking this time to create nourishing foods or just time to prioritize yourself, making room for things for relaxation, be it things like an Epsom salt bath, reading your favorite type of book, or just getting outside in nature and relaxing and touching grass. All of these things are really, really important when it comes to getting out of that survival mode and just breaking free of those old patterns. And of course, this goes without saying that if you need some help, sometimes we are overwhelmed and sometimes you need to reach out to get help, whether that be resources from things like a therapist, a health coach, your doctor, or even friends and family. If you need some support and accountability, do not be afraid or do not be ashamed or feel guilty for reaching out for the type of help that you need. Living in survival is no joke, and eventually the consequences can catch up to you. I have seen it so many times in working with clients and working with patients. You don't want this to go on for so long that you start to have different sorts of illnesses pop up. Things like hypertension, things like autoimmune conditions, just things like chronic pain. They don't have to happen, but we do have to address the issues, and we do have to address the stress that comes along with living in survival. So these are just some of the tactics, some basic ways that I either use with myself or use with my clients or my patients. So I hope that this video was helpful, and I hope that you learned something. If you have any questions, always leave them down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you check out this playlist? All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye.